Companies, when they get an international opportunity, it's usually transaction driven. Someone has called them up and say, hey, I would like to represent your company in this new country, or gee, we have a great market for your product here, come and put a factory in our country. And so the U.S. company is scratching its head saying, how do I get there cost effectively? And typically the first phone call is to the accountant or the tax person who already has a relationship with the company. And it's their responsibility to help put together the international team. That means not just people on this side of the ocean, but say in France or Germany or wherever the destination might be, it's taking advantage of the UHY international affiliation of firms to make sure that the right professionals are on the ground in the destination. While the world is getting flatter, taxes aren't there yet. Every country is going through a constant process of change in how they tax their industries that are there and those that come in the form of new investment. So I wouldn't say that we can look forward to a time when it's going to get easier. If anything, it's getting more complex. In the 21st century, we've seen property become more portable, whether it's the ability to manufacture in multiple jurisdictions or it's valuable intangible property that's being created and used all over the world. Each country wants to get a piece of that intangible property, and it's portable. So that means it can move from one place to another fairly quickly depending on what the tax rate is. In the case of the U.S., there are some pretty complex rules that make it difficult and expensive for U.S. companies to move their valuable intangibles offshore to exploit the upside in a lower tax country. But there are ways to confront that. Big picture, transfer pricing is how related parties deal with one another across borders and across different taxing jurisdictions. It springs from the assumption that a multinational group of companies will manipulate income and deductions across those borders in order to get the most tax-effective answer and the lowest effective tax rate. But countries, governments, will only let that go so far. And that's where we come up with the concept of transfer pricing as both a sword and a shield. It's a shield in the sense that if a company wants to justify the bite that the tax authorities can take out of profits in a particular country, it has to have documentation to do that. And that documentation is a transfer pricing study done by an economist that shows that the profits or the pricing within the multinational group in a particular country is arm's length. This magic standard of arm's length assumes that affiliated entities should deal with each other as third parties would and arrive at a price that shows a bargaining and an aggressive attempt to get to the right answer price-wise. Transfer pricing is really a science in that the study is done by an economist, but it's also an art because it's the tool that the international tax planner uses to help a client decide where to maximize profits within that allowable range and to get the best answer. For high tax countries, a lower profit. For low tax countries, a higher profit. Now that's a very simplistic example, but when you look at the price of each product crossing a border, a difference of a 1/10 of a percentage point could be significant in the overall profits of the multinational group. Companies that are considering expanding into another country need to look at the whole package, not just what the tax rate is. Because while it's nice to be close to your customers, if your product is fairly portable, maybe you could put it in, say, a tax-free zone in a neighboring country and do some assembly or packaging there, and you could still deliver it to the target market, but you could cut down on the tax associated with the whole transaction. So while this is a market-driven process, ultimately there are opportunities available, and it's important to consider the whole array of the functions that you need to happen in a foreign country and see where can we do them, maybe close by, maybe in an enterprise zone near a port, that will allow us to shave a few points off of the tax rate in the destination jurisdiction. Because we see companies going international at ever earlier points in their lives, it's important that they get the right answers before they go and that they do the planning, because I've seen more times than not some costly lessons learned by companies when they don't anticipate what the tax situation or the overall business climate may be in a foreign jurisdiction. And the earlier that you know it, the more likely you are to avoid those unpleasant surprises and very costly mistakes.
UHY Advisors Merrill Markley has presented some compelling reasons to be proactive when it comes to your international tax planning, especially when it comes to transfer pricing. You can read her article on transfer pricing in this month's edition of Business in the Eye of the Storm magazine.